All right, guys. Next up, we have how to fight DDoS attacks from the command line with Mike and McMahon.
Thank you. First, I want to ask some questions. Who's actually running web servers or services publicly on the internet? Yeah. I know there was a lot of hands this morning for people on the defensive side. So this is going to be a defense talk. That's where my bias is. I'm going to run through some quick little licensing things. This is a copyleft talk. Copyright Mike McMahon 2025. Released under the Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike 4.0 International License. The opinions expressed here are my own and not that of my employer. So I've been working at the FSF since 2019. Is anybody familiar with the FSF? All right. So we're kind of a unique nonprofit organization. We only run free software from the bottom up. None of our stuff is non-free, proprietary. I found that to be very interesting because I got to run everything. I got to put my fingers in all the pots. We run 70 sites and services. And when I started, there was 4 people on the tech team. Now there are 2 people on the tech team. We have a couple of volunteers and full-time employees and the volunteers together make the FSF SysOps team. Very appreciative of that team. Before that, I have experience in manufacturing, education, game development, music development. It's a pretty wide background. Why I'm talking to you today is because for the last year, we've been under DDoS attacks. Before that, we've been on attacks off and on, but for more than a year, we've been undergoing constant DDoS attacks. I have a mooning graph right here that I think is crazy. Bob, one of the FSF SysOps members, identified a unique pattern on Savannah. Savannah is our software forge, and we were able to filter on this pattern, put them in IP set, and at one time we had 5.1 million IPs matching that pattern. That's a lot of IPs attacking one site. The scope of this talk is very specific to the FSF. I'm only going to be talking about free tools. What that means, if you're not familiar with the concept, is that there are 4 freedoms of free software. That is to run, edit, contribute, and share. If you can do that with the code, all 4 of those things, run, edit, contribute, share, and it's free software. And I don't care about price. All these tools I'm going to be talking about happen to be free. That's not the point. The point's freedom. If they are not with those 4 freedoms, I'm going to call it non-free or unknown if it's native free software behind them. Even if you're not interested in it from a philosophical standpoint, I believe that in the security field, you cannot practice the trust but verify concepts unless your tools are free. Now, I'm specifically talking about small to medium-sized attacks. I've got a friend who works at a larger nonprofit organization, and they cannot log the data that they are getting. I'm calling that a large attack, a large site. We can still log. I'm calling that a small to medium. I'm going to be talking specifically about web servers. This might apply to other things, but I'm usually talking about Nginx and Apache that can log. This might apply to other ones like Caddy. I know that's a popular one, but I'm rooting for Nginx at the moment. I'm not going to be talking about AI or blockchain, and all these tools can be self-hosted. So what's going on here? Some of this is speculation because the abuse that we're seeing is not coming with an abuse note. In some attacks in the past, there's been an anonymous email that comes in and says, "This is who we are. This is what we're doing. These are our demands," and we don't have that this time. And there's multiple tasks. It's not one thing. But most people are assuming that a lot of these are AI scrapers. There's AI tech bros with startups using botnets to scrape the internet as much as they can to get the most recent, fresh capture of the web as fast as they possibly can. AI is kind of controversial. Some people hate it, want to block it all as much as they can. But it's interesting because sometimes if you have a message to spread, you want to get scraped so that your message becomes part of the model. And whenever somebody asks an agent a question, they'll get back an answer that includes your organization. So you have to decide for yourself where you draw that line. I draw that line at bots that identify themselves and respect the robots.txt file. Second one's vulnerability scanners. I'm going to skip that at BSides. You know what that's about. So where are AI crawlers and vulnerability scanners coming from? Traditional VPNs, that's a big one. I love them VPNs and privacy, so I'm not blocking these outright. I do block bad ones as I see them, but those tend to be temporary. Botnets are a big one. These look like they're coming from everybody. Cloud providers, residential addresses, companies everywhere. A particularly interesting one that kind of matches the scale that I'm seeing is void, unpatched Android smart TVs got compromised in the millions. And that would fall under the consumer residential IP address ranges. An interesting one that's come up is people selling their bandwidth to make some extra cash. An example of this is magneticproxy.com, but there's a whole bunch of different organizations that will purchase your bandwidth. And what that essentially does is you get paid a little bit to be a part of a bot. So that doesn't make your IP address look good. I can't imagine that follows the terms of service of your internet service provider, but do they care? I don't know. I don't like it though. I would suggest not doing that. One that really grinds my gears is crawling as a service. One of the tools that took down one of our sites was scraping. And I looked into the issue tracker of Strapey, and the devs don't care. They don't build it in a way that respects websites. So the company behind it's called Zeit. They don't care. If you read their site, it will get your blood pressure boiling. Share the link at the end. Another one that's pretty frustrating is poorly configured CI/CD services. This is mostly companies that are running server farms of automation. They make sure that their builds work, There's not any new updates. Nothing's changed. Companies don't need to do that. They don't need to hit external sites every time one of their devs submits a patch to their infrastructure. If you're building spiders and CI automation and you're hitting external servers, please identify yourselves with a user agent and a link with contact. When I see something like that, I can reach out. Otherwise, I just block it. Call it screen test. So all that together, it seems that the health of the web has some serious problems right now. When I talk about DDoS, I typically get 3 suggestions. And I don't use any of these. I'm going to tell you why. Traditional DDoS protection is routing your traffic through a third-party proxy. And on the third-party proxy, they have some magic that looks for DDoS patterns and blocks it. That's bad for privacy because your whole set of connections go through this third party. Can you trust the third party? It's adding one more person in the know. Doesn't need to know. Cloudflare does a lot of things. So when I talk about Cloudflare, it's not one thing, it's many services. It's also bad for privacy. And it can be very bad for privacy potentially. Sometimes you have to share your TLS certificates with it. So if Cloudflare is compromised, that could be a man-in-the-mill attack against all their clients. I don't want to participate in that. It's non-free JavaScript. So that's right up for us. And then the CAPTCHAs that they use, in addition to being non-free, are often accessibility issues. Who failed a CAPTCHA this week? You know, I did. I failed to identify a duck. Yeah. So a lot of the CAPTCHAs require that you have mental facilities to identify things, that you have strong eyesight, and the alternative is usually that you can hear. So there is a better way. The third one is Anubis and Go Away. These are very similar. As far as I know, these are 100% free software. The default functionality uses JavaScript, and my organization has a complicated history with that. So we're not going to put a JavaScript gateway in front of our site. There are alternatives to JavaScript that they allow, and that's very good. Another reason why we're not using this JavaScript challenge is because the difficulty is dynamic in how much abuse your site is getting. Difficulty challenge 2 takes my old laptop a couple seconds. Difficulty 4 took my laptop 64 seconds to get into the GNU GitLab instance. 64 seconds is a long time. I've read an article that researchers have figured out a way to automate those checks as well. So if a scraper has a botnet, they can have one expensive node that just solves these challenges on the command line. Then they have an army of cheap VPSs and botnets and TVs and whatever that are able to scrape somewhat slower after they get these checks done. With all that said, I think Anubis and Go Away might be the best ethical option for you and your organization if the rest of my talk is overwhelming. I'm going to be talking about a lot of things. Now, I got to put a disclaimer here. You got to be mindful of your rules. If you're blocking search engines, that's going to hurt your page rank. Talking search engine optimization. If you're blocking AI crawlers, they might not know who you are afterwards. And a really complicated one is carrier grade NAT. This is where many different computers share the same address space. Big examples are China, Brazil, Peru, mobile phones, VPNs. If you're blocking by IP address, and you pretty much have to, it's going to be unfair to these TG-NATs. Only a few of my tools are compatible with that in mind. So, talking web servers, how can we configure these? Whenever you can, reduce the complexity of your sites. If you're running a WordPress, think about, could it be a static site? If you have expensive things that can be accessed from the internet, consider putting an authentication from it. Distribute as much as you can nearer to other data centers, other states, other countries, other continents, if you have the ability to do so. Now, from a privacy standpoint, keep in mind, Prism has some more privacy implications when you're dealing with intercontinental traffic. Maybe that matters, maybe it doesn't. If you're running a server farm, reach out about in-kind donations that you can help us out with. Something that I really like that may or may not be effective is robots.txt files. To me, this is stating what you as a web administrator consent to bots hitting your site with. I have a good example on fsf.org/robots.txt. Feel free to copy from it. An important part of it is crawl delay. Now, it's not an official part of the RFC 9309 robots.txt standard, so it only works for those that listen. Bing listens, a lot of big ones do listen, but Google doesn't, and a lot of people just follow what Google does. It's really frustrating. And we pretty much have to do whatever Google wants because they've got the monopoly on search. I hate it. One thing about robots.txt file is it's just a sign. It doesn't have anything to do with enforcement. It's on them to follow the sign. The rest of the top is going to be about enforcement. Rate limiting is an important part of a web server config. Nginx has it built in. Apache 2 does not, but you can add it in with mod quality of service, QoS. QoS also helps for slow LoRa attacks. We have seen. Two more things about web servers before we move on. You can shed the load if you know that you're getting attacked by a certain user agent. You can configure it to just return a 403. Instead of doing the full request, just do a quick little 403 page. That helps quite a bit. Problem is that the attacker knows you know about their attack. A really strong example of that is blocking empty user agent strings. Most of the empty user agent strings are vulnerability scanners, so if you drop those, you're already a little more safe after that. Talking about large traffic that you can't log, mod security is a WAF, a web application firewall. The new version only works with Nginx, so this is another reason why I'm saying Nginx is good. The old version of mod security 2 works with Apache 2, and I am using it. It is good. I'm using it until I can switch everything to Nginx. it can do a lot. So I don't have time to go really too far into it, but it really helps with China traffic. If I identify a bad pattern coming from China, I can sculpt that traffic, block some of the requests that are bad, and allow normal people that are viewing the site. I'm not going to go too far into monitoring, but I do want to highlight these 4 tools. Uptime Puma is one of my new favorites. Pretty simple. It tells you if a site is making requests in a good time. Prometheus, everybody should know Prometheus. Moonin, saw the graph in the second slide. H-top, it's a good one when you're actually on the machine. I'm going to show 2 previews of what Uptime Puma looks like. A lot of people have seen this one. It's very simple. Green means that Uptime Puma is getting requests. Red, kind of a bad example because there's no red on it, but red means there's more than 48 seconds response time. We'll show red on the next one. On the back end, there's a more detailed view that's specific response time to the graph. I love this view. It tells me if a site is actually outlining them. This big, long red bar was a kernel panic. Before that was a DDoS attack. It was all over the place. And afterwards was after fixed it with some of these other tools. Most of the analysis depends on logs. Some people are against logs because of privacy. I think you need logs if you can handle it. I made a tool to help me look at logs called Log Review. I'm going to give you a little demo of it. It isn't as flashy as some of the others, Patchy Top and Go Access, but it helps me find very obvious abnormalities in web server traffic. And then once you have some IP addresses, you look them up with one of my favorite tools, IP to ASN web service. This is a local ASN lookup tool. It's free, and I've got it on my machine here. Before I show you a live demo, let's talk about standard log formats. To understand log review, you need to understand logs. Here is one line of a web server log. It's kind of a lot. This is from list.gnu.org. But the first part is the IP address and the date, the actual request, the response code, 200 in this case, the size, and then their user agent. User agent and request are typically the most important ones to look at when analyzing for abuse, and the IP address, of course. Date is helpful to see how many requests from me at a certain time. And size, my tool doesn't do size, but Patchy Top and Go Access also analyze that. I don't know how familiar you are with command line, but pipes are very important. And a lot of my tools are piping things from here to there, everywhere. I want to show you this series that I use all the time. Sort to unique, count to sort numerically. On the left column, we got an unsorted list of cats, dogs, and squirrel. After you run through sort, it puts it in alphabetical order. Cat, 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 dog, 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 squirrel. After you run it through unique, it counts the numbers, and it's much abbreviated as that whole. Sorting by number puts them in order. So log review is doing that, but in a larger scale. All right, so this is real traffic. I've redacted a few that might not be of use. Here's the sample of the log config. It's running on this one from August 28th, specifically only Chrome 112. I was seeing an abuse of Chrome version 112, which is several years old at this point. If you have a lot of logs, it might take a while. There's, I don't know, 800,000 lines on this one. It kind of goes fast once it gets going. It shows a few things. It looks for the top most frequent IPs, and then for each one, it looks at what their user agents are, what are some of the last 3 requests that they made, and what are the requests that they make the most. I think with those little bits of data, you can kind of get a gist of something. You kind of quickly identify whether it's a vulnerability scanner or whether it's a scraper or if it's broken and repeating the same thing over and over time. And then at the end, total stats of user agents. On this one, it's not very interesting because it's specifically Chrome 112. That last one is an outlier. It's got almost 800,000 hits from a very old browser. That's not right. In a moment, I'll show you. I'll go back to these IPs, but this one. Sorry, my view is a little different than your view. So, all right. So here's one block of an address. IP 136.226.80.1.800. This was all one user agent. They are scraping archives of journalists. We'll look and find out where they come from. All right, so once you have some data to work with, there are some manual actions you can take. You can configure firewalls, build new rules. That gets kind of tedious if you're under a big attack. So I've automated that. I'll show you the scripts in a second. At a certain point, if you're using traditional firewall tools, you will run out of rules. A lot of them have a limit of 65,000, something like that. If you're dealing with a 5 million IP botnet, that's not enough. So IP set is the way to expand it. You can also block by country. That's called geofencing. I feel kind of gross doing that. Some people don't even need other countries. It's like I got a friend who works in a US-based nonprofit. Anything that's not in the US isn't his clients. Doesn't care if we drop all that traffic. I don't have that luxury. And you can write manual abuse reports. Sometimes those work, sometimes they're a waste of time. So here's a collection of scripts. I published these somewhat recently. There's a QR code that links to the repo. I'm calling it Firewall Block Gen. IP to ASN info it's a wrapper for IP to ASN web service. Makes a comma separated values list of the IP. their ASN, description of the ASN, the country, and the date. And then I have several other scripts that are variations of that, go a step further and build firewall rules. I've got one for IP tables, one for UFW short wall, IP set. I've got a little script that'll fetch every CIDR for an ASN. So you can block that if you see a pattern. And I've got one for country codes as well for geofencing. So I do demo some of those. I like to set up my talks to be completely offline. So I've got a web server running on this laptop, and it's got the data. Normally it fetches the data from IP to ASN every hour, so it's up to date. I'm going to start IP to ASN. It doesn't have any output, so I'm just going to assume that it works. And I'll show you IP to ASN info first. The IPs that we saw in the log review are these three. So I can run IP to ASN info .sh. And here we have the IP address, the ASN, the description of the ASN, the country, and the date. 2 and 3 doesn't really give you a big insight into what's going on, but if you look up thousands that match one specific abuse pattern, maybe Zscaler is the ASN that an attacker is using. You can block Zscaler. ASN's IP set requires the internet, so I recorded a terminal session using it. It's just gonna be like I'm typing, but I'm not actually typing. So one time I saw Tencent, the company behind TikTok, was aggressively scraping our site. This is one of their ASNs. 132203, somewhere back. So this uses an external site that you can request an ASN from. It does the text first thing and turns it into an IP set. This is very, very helpful. Once you have the IP set script, then you can run it if you have IP set installed in IP tables, and we'll block all that traffic. If you block this up the chain, say you're self-hosting and you're running a website on the VM, you go up the chain and run it on the host, that's more effective. If you run it further up on a router, it's even more effective. I'll show you the same thing for countries. I don't like to block countries outright, but sometimes it's the best thing to get your site back up. This example's blocking China, Hong Kong, and Brazil. I try to practice what I preach, so between each one, there's a sleep. I'm not DDoSing their servers. I think I have Brazil blocked on a couple sites right now. I don't think I have channel block at the moment, which is good. So it doesn't take too long. If you're blocking a whole long range, it does take a lot more. All right, so the longest time I was using fail to ban. Fail to ban is a program where you can write regular expressions to look for a pattern in logs and then take action on that pattern. Last week, I migrated to a different alternative to fail to ban called reaction. And reaction's written in Rust. Fail to ban is written in Python. Reaction is fast. It's lower on resources. It's very cool. It's kind of a build it yourself kind of deal. Fail to ban has configs that you can kind of rework. Reaction, you got to build it yourself. But a lot of it's carrying over from what I've learned from fail to ban. It did not have an example for IP set, so I wasn't able to use it. But last week I figured it out. So it's not on the wiki yet, but if you look at this issue, it's got an IP set example that does work. It is defending www.kingdom.org. Right. You can also trigger various things. Blocking is the most obvious one. You can also report to blocklist.v, which will send abuse reports automatically on your behalf once a day, or abuse IPTP. This one's kind of interesting. What I've talked about so far is defense. There's an interesting concept called offensive defense, which you guys might like. It's a little spicy. Tar pits are an effective way to ethically trap bots that don't listen. Next slide is going to be a specific example of a simple and effective tar pit. Markov engines are a way to fill a crawler with junk data at the expense of your CPU time and bandwidth. I think that's a bad trade-off with my limited resources, but not everybody does. IOCAN from Princess Bride reference is the new one. And zip bombs are a new way to fight back. I don't know if it's effective. If you're doing this, please make sure that you're absolutely positive there are no false positives. This blog post has an example of how to set up the config for it. And that GitHub link has a 1 megabyte to 1 terabyte zip bomb. This is a tar pit. I got it from Martin. He lives in New England. He's the main dev on Inkscape. Great guy. So this is all of it right here on the screen. It's a little small, sorry. First off, you gotta have in your robots.txt file a line, 2 lines that say "Don't go to the tar pit." So every bot that's reading the tar pit, that's reading the robots.txt file, but listens, won't go there. In the HTML, you gotta have a link to it, but Martin did a clever thing where he puts it outside of the view of the browser, and it's also hidden from screen readers. So no human should see that if they're browsing the page normally. They'll only know about it in the robots.txt file and the source code of the page. If there's just one link and one bot goes there, a lot of these are botnets. So If you drop one leg of the octopus, it doesn't matter. You can keep changing that link. You can keep getting more legs. And then once they go to that link, then you can set a fail to ban or reaction filter to block them. If you feel a little spicier, you can zip on them. It's up to you. I want to do some shout outs. Thank you, BSides Connecticut. Thank you, Sacred Heart University. Thanks for Nothing Scrapey and Zeit. And thank you to Reaction IP, to ASN Web Service, IPset, Uptime, Kuma, Moonin, Anubis, Go Away, Prometheus, Moonin, Mod Security, Apache 2, Nginx, Quality of Service, Fail to Ban, Apache Tap, Go Access, For Utils, Sed, Awk, Curl, IP Tables, UFW, Inkscape, the Penthes, Hell, IOCANN, Operating Systems, Trispel, Debian, Graphene OS. This is LibreOffice, Firefox, a browser, Markcore, Vim, NeoVim, GIM. Made the first slide with GIM and all their dependencies. Thank you to the volunteers that make up the FSF SysOps team and to all of you. Thank you. Still got a few doubts. How can you help us? I love my job. I think what I do is really cool. If you like what I do, there are ways to donate. Become a member. You can donate a one-off. Your organization can become a patron. You can volunteer with the FSF SysOps team. And what would really help is to actually use these tools that I'm talking about. Contribute patches, submit issues, write blog posts about using them and configuring them. All this helps. And I really want you to stop giving money to these proprietary alternatives. If your organization does give money to the proprietary alternatives, try to match that on the free side as well. The proprietary side has a tendency to rug pull you, so they get you hooked. How many prices went up this year? You know, it's a non-trivial amount. And adding crawl delay to the RFCD 9309 standard would help out the internet. There's a couple of references I didn't have time to, I didn't have space on the slides to put. Man, I hate Zeit. Don't go there if you have blood pressure problems. Here's my contact information. There's a QR code with the slide download link. I made some changes to the slides, so this is the slides from this morning. If you visit it later tonight or tomorrow, it will be exactly what you saw today. I'm on Mastodon. Tom Zane's my IRC nick. I got my permanent and temporary emails. I've only got about a minute left. So I can take a question now, but I'm going to be hanging out in the lobby if you want to talk. Any questions? I know I threw a lot at you.
Another question. You club is well for both you should that.
Yeah, probably. The best of my ability, I block Shodan as a router. What I know Shodan to be. I need to update that, but I block Shodan as this, and there's a few other stuff.
Shodan. Solid.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't think Shodan shows up in the user agent, but Census and some of the others do, so you can block them with reaction failed event.
Best. Daily.